players did start off with a win here, so this should be pretty fun to watch here. Again, VanMeter playing Jund Monsters last weekend. Bronduin playing a very similar list. They had some minor cosmetic changes. Bronduin getting 10th place there. VanMeter kind of grinding out some wins. Weekend did not go as well as he wanted, but you know, he's always playing monsters. He's made some slight changes. I know he cut a Dreadbore for Mizian Mortars, and he's obviously going to start off here with something that's never going to get cut from the deck. An Elvish Mystic on turn number 1.
And the most important part of this deck in my mind is just, does it start off with the mana acceleration or not? Plays a lot of really powerful 4 and 5 mana cards. When you're accelerating into them, the deck's very powerful. When you're casting them on time, the deck is very beatable. So,
Stomping Ground going to come into play tapped here for VanMeter. He's coming across for 1 point of damage. Going to put Fortner down to 19. See what Fortner has on his second turn here in round number 2 of 9 from Knoxville. He does have a second land here. You do see a Magma Jet in his hand. He's playing pretty much a burn-based strategy, but again, it's a mix of the two. You know, normally when we take a look at Red-White Burn, a deck that really picked up at the back end of last season, you know, you saw 4 Chandra's Phoenix, 4 Ash Zealot, all burn spells, no other creatures. This one's got main deck Boros Reckoner, he's got main deck Satyr Fire Dancers, Dictated the Twin Gods, Storm Breath Dragon in the main deck. Does have, of course, 4 copies of Chandra's Phoenix, so really a mix of the two.
And I pretty strongly prefer the list that can play with some creatures and have something resembling a normalized backup plan. I do not like the 24 lands, 36 burn spell build of the deck. So something along these lines is a more closer to what I would play, I think.
Magma Jet takes down the Elvish Mystic as VanMeter untaps. He takes a draw and puts a Temple of Abandon into play, consulting his hand for the Scry. You can see his hand right now. He's got a Gore-Clan Rampager, a couple copies of Xenagos, the Reveler, and a Stormbreath Dragon. So his hand is actually very expensive. Was really relying on that Elvish Mystic to live.
Very commonly the case with decks like Jund Monsters as well. The deck is all about playing stuff ahead of schedule. Sometimes it can't cast things all together when it's missing its mana acceleration, and at the minimum has to play a much slower pace.
Chandra's Phoenix is going to come across here for 2 points in the air. VanMeter is going to go down to 18. We're going to see if he has a 4th land. Looks like he does have a Mutavault at the ready here. Looks like he also has a black producing land as well in his hand. The most important card on Chris's side in this matchup is certainly Courser of Crucifix, and he doesn't have one of those just yet.
The incidental life gain and being tough to kill with burn because it's 4 toughness makes it a very potent threat against red-white aggro.
Xenagos the Reveler are going to join the party. I know BBD and CVM, big fan of this Planeswalker. Satyr Token likely going to be joining the party in just a moment and moving into the red zone after Fortner's life total. You saw him mark something down here, so it looks like Fortner's probably going to be going down to 17 here. As it looks like the race is pretty much on.
And racing situations, generally speaking, are going to be favorable for the red-white aggro deck.
Fortner going to take a draw here, has the Phoenix in play. Looks like he's got a Boros Charm in the grip as well as a Lightning Strike, so he's definitely got some things to do over here. Does the red-white aggro player. Going to begin by playing land number 4, which is a mountain. Keep in mind that Mutavault that's in that land row as well.
And Boros Reckoner very powerful against decks like Green-Red and Jund Monsters. Less so against Jund Monsters. They have some Dreadbores to be able to pick it apart, but...
Yeah, but VanMeter, don't forget, he also made the cognizant decision to actually remove a Dreadbore from his deck to play another Mortars. You know, that was a choice that he made. Here's a Satyr Fire Dancer post-combat after taking care of the Xenagos with the Mutavault and the Phoenix. So, and I know that Chris said basically, I have to play Jund Monsters because my deck is so soft to Desecration Demon that I need access to Dreadbore. But at the same time, he has to assume that he's against some sort of red-white burn deck that doesn't, you know, maybe have access to Boros Reckoner. Because a lot of the, you know, the versions are actually pretty different. Some do, some don't.
And I would say that Boros Reckoner is the exception and not the rule. It's more common to see lists that are not playing with that card altogether.
So the Fire Dancer, don't forget, that is an enchantment creature too, something that I kind of learned over the past week here. VanMeter really going to take a look at some things here. It does have another copy again of Xenagos in his hand. You saw Fortner go directly after that as opposed to VanMeter's life total, so he was certainly concerned about the Planeswalker. Fire Dancer adds a new element to this game, however, for VanMeter, because that card's very, very good if he's allowed to untap with it.
And very good against Xenagos specifically, too, as it's an easy way for him to check a Planeswalker and take down the tokens along the way.
Chris going to keep the pressure on, makes another Satyr, gets into the red zone. Fortner's going to go down to 13. You see VanMeter sitting at 18 here. Xenagos with 3 counters on it. Will Fortner go after it again is the question.
Chris has got to be reasonably pleased just being able to get a threat into play and Phillip spending some amount of time killing things, but Xenagos still fairly low impact overall in the last couple turns.
So now there's a Boros Reckoner post-combat. So this changes things in a big way. Now it almost forces VanMeter to have Dreadbore or Bust here because attacking is really difficult. I suppose he does have a copy of Gorkland Rampager in his hand, but you can definitely tell this game is a lot more difficult than I think he thought it was going to be.
The Rampager isn't even that good in this spot because the impetus is still on Chris to act first in the event that Phillip blocks. And at that point, you're potentially getting blown out by something like Lightning Strike you redirect to the guy you just pumped. So Boros Reckoner is very powerful when it's uncontested against these style of decks.
VanMeter going to survey things here. He also has a Sylvan Caryatid in his hand. The one thing he doesn't have right now is a Dreadbore, as that would have likely been cast at this point. You also see the Elvish Mystic and then the Stormbreath Dragon. So the question is, do I go to the skies or do I just keep doing what I'm doing right now? Maybe Rampager through that Boros Reckoner, maybe lose something. His life total's pretty high at this point, so you get 18, but can't feel too safe when you're playing against the burn deck.
The biggest problem with Stormbreath Dragon is if Phillip untaps and just has multiple burn spells to send at Chris, it's just too big of a swing. But it's not clear that Chris has any other path of action at this point.
Well, if there's somebody that can figure it out, it's certainly him. He's got a lot of experience playing this Monsters deck. Might even be considering firing up Mutavault here with the Rampager. Pretty good turn, actually. If he fires up Mutavault, Rampagers through the Boros Reckoner and plays an Elvish Mystic post-combat. You don't hate that. It just doesn't... Don't know if that's correct, of course, but...
The Satyr Fired Answer just makes it very risky.
Yeah.
Phillip still has 2 mana up. He could have Magma Jet or Lightning Strike here.
It looks like it is going to be a Mutavault activation. We're going into the red zone. Boros Reckoner is going to go onto the Mutavault. Looks like it's going to be an attempt at a Gorkland Rampager. And it is. Does he have a burn spell? Oh, he does. It's a Lightning Strike. It's going upstairs and going to take care of the Mutavault. So a bit of a blowout there. And that's what you mentioned.
And Chris doesn't really have a better way of navigating this. He just has to suck this up. I do like Phillip there deciding to block the Mutavault there, trying to keep Chris off of 6 mana because he has to be concerned about the possibility of Mizium Mortars.
Chain of the Rocks the draw here for Fortner.
Now, earlier in this game, Phillip did scry a Boros Charm and kept it on top, even though he didn't have white mana, I think in hopes of drawing white mana down the line, but now he has not found white mana yet and has drawn another white card.
An attack here for 4. Going to knock VanMeter a little bit lower. You see the life totals here, 11 and 9. Going to pass the turn back here again. VanMeter has to tread lightly the entire time because even though we know that Fortner has a Boros Charm and a Chain of the Rocks in his hand, VanMeter doesn't know that. The question is, can he do anything about it, as there is a Temple. He's going to take a look at Scry here.
As a rule, waiting is bad against burn. So you're often put in a position where it looks like you're just playing into their tricks, but that's because giving them time is very dangerous.
Puts top card to the bottom. Going to cast the Stormbreath Dragon again. I come across here. Roll VanMeter for 4 points of damage in the air. The coast is clear. Fortner's going to go down to 5. Going to be very telling if Fortner actually has to put the brakes on here with that Chandra's Phoenix now moving forward, as he's going to take a draw. Not sure if that was a white source of mana or not. He certainly needs one, though. Sacred Foundry would arguably be the best draw he has this turn.
Be really good. Again, with Boros Charm in hand and the Fired Answer in play, it would be a huge swing.
Now, one thing Fortner actually does have in his deck is 3 copies of Mana Confluence. How do you feel about that card here?
I saw a list, I believe last week, like this that had cut the Boros Guild Gates. I still feel like your life total matters enough that I don't think I want Mana Confluence in this deck, but I can appreciate making that change. It feels close to me. I think my initial instinct would just be to still play a couple Guild Gates or Black-Red Temples and try to cobble together the mana that way.
Here's 5 mana. Wow, Stormbreath Dragon of his own for Fortner. It's 1 of in his deck. That came rolling off the top for the turn.
Not a bad spot to have it in.
Yeah. Will it attack? Ooh, it looks like it will. We're getting mighty aggressive here.
Well, he doesn't have that much more time, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
He's barely hanging on in this game, so Phillip might have to play the game in such a way to try to end it within 2 turns.
Big question here is, what's VanMeter's best draw? You see Fortner going to come across here, attacking with Stormbreath Dragon. Looks like maybe even Reckoner's going to come in now too.
Keep in mind, if Chris has access to mana here, that he can go monsters with the Stormbreath Dragon.
Yeah.
So Phillip is facing lethal, not exactly on board, but kind of close to it.
So just looks like just an attack with the Dragon. VanMeter going to look at his hand. He's just got a Sylvan Caryatid. He's going to go down to 7 now. Let's see what he can draw. Museum Mortars wouldn't be so bad. Stormbreath Dragon number 2. What does that do to this game?
Still not a lethal attack from... Oh, no, it is. He only has one blocker for a flyer.
He's got 1 blocker for a flyer.
So this is lethal.
Yep. He turns everything sideways here. He's got 1 dragon on lockdown with the Phoenix, so 4's going to come across, put him down to 1. And then if he blocks both of the 2 power creatures, the Elvish Mystic comes in for the last point of damage. Yep. So a timely top deck there for CVM. You see a hearty smile for the Bearded Warrior. Does win game number 1 here. Jund Monsters up a game over Red-White Aggro.
Yeah, Phillip there with a pretty risky keep with that Scry, leaving that Boros Charm on top and never found white mana.
May come back to hurt him there. We'll never know. We'll take a look at the sideboards, however, and of course you have Red-White Aggro in front of you, so what can he do to turn things around?
He has 2 copies of Wear Tear, 2 Searing Bloods, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 Museum Mortars, a Chain of the Rocks, 3 Fire Drinker Satyrs, 2 Spark Troopers, and a Stormbreath Dragon. I like bringing in the additional copies of Museum Mortars here. A lot of good targets, Stormbreath Dragon and Corsair Crewfix, most notably. I think he wants the additional copy of Chain of the Rocks. Chris has a lot of big stuff. The Stormbreath Dragon and the 2 Spark Troopers. I think he wants to become more of a removal and creature deck and less of a straight burn deck in this matchup. He needs to be able to interact with the board because Chris arguably has a faster uncontested draw than Phillip does.
Other side of things for VanMeter, I feel like he's a little lucky to get out of game 1 alive. It feels like game 1's kind of bad for him. He's able to turn things around. The things he can turn things around with, he's got a Sire of Insanity, a Chandra, Pyromaster, another copy of Museum Mortars to go along with the 2 in the main deck of Vraska the Unseen. And then some of the cheaper cards here, an Abrupt Decay, Golgari Charm, and Putrefy, all 2 ofs, along with 2 copies of Rakdos Return, and then 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra. I actually like the K in this matchup. Takes care of the Fire Dancer, takes care of Boros Reckoner, takes care of Phoenix temporarily, along with Chain to the Rocks. Kind of like Golgari Charm as well, can take care of the Fire Dancer and Chain to the Rocks. Putrefy is a little bit more expensive than I would like, but might need that sort of utility in this matchup. The rest of the cards are all pretty expensive. Sire, Chandra, Vraska, Mistcutter Hydra is actually a card that I think he'll probably employ in this matchup. I saw kind of a wonky sideboarding plan that involves Mistcutter Hydra to really help you be able to win the race because it's so big.
Are you removing the Planeswalkers? How are you making room for this stuff?
Yeah, I think that Domri and Xenagos are just pretty poor in this matchup. I'm not exactly sure how good Stormbreath Dragon is either. We saw it actually win that game, but things probably change after sideboard here. So it's kind of a strange matchup. I'll be interested to see exactly how Chris does sideboard here.
In my experience playing Burn, Stormbreath Dragon is pretty good against the deck because your removal spells are Museum Mortars and World Leader's Helix rather, and Chain of the Rocks, neither of which can touch Stormbreath Dragon.
Sure.
And the Monsters deck has to win kind of quickly because they can't just wait for you to assemble a lethal hand. So it is fast and it is immune to a lot of your removal spells. So pretty good in the matchup.
See both players shuffling up here. We'll be underway in game number 2 here in just a moment. Round 2 of 9. Yes, 9, not 10. Just below the cutoff. 404 players showed up here in Knoxville. Patrick Sullivan, Cedric Phillips, Star City Games Open Series here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We saw Evan Irwin last round. We know that Eric Rill, he did win round number 1, as did Joe Lissette and the player we're watching right now, Chris VanMeter. So the race is on here for season number 2. At SCG Live, hashtag SCG Knox for your tweets all weekend long. We'll be taking questions about this standard format. We're working on peeling back the layers here. Week 1, while it was fun, nothing too crazy happened. Tenjin winning with Black Green Devotion, as you guys all do know by now. Real runner-up with Blue White Control, but we're looking for some brews. That's what we want to see. We want to see something break through here in the top 8.
It's going to be, again, the barrier for really new content entering the format is just tough. Just because of Sphinx's Revelation and Thoughtseize and the good catch-all answers. But
yeah, chances are, I think what ends up happening here, for Magic Online, the pre-release for Journey to the Nyx is actually this weekend, I believe. And I think that's when people can really start to work on some things because, maybe you're a little bit scared to try out something at the open that comes to your town. And, like, for example, Knoxville is the first time we've been here. Who knows when we're going to be back? Is it time to try out a brew? Is it time to play something safe like Jund Monsters? But Magic Online, hey, I got some tickets. I'll try some stuff.
Assuming that you can log into Magic Online, which is no guarantee, this is a pretty good weekend for trying to explore new content.
VanMeter going to be in the draw here. Fortner going to be on the play.
What? I'm just saying.
I know. I see what you did there. I didn't correct you because you didn't say anything that was false.
Right. I'm just saying, if you can, this would be a good weekend to be able to do it. You would be able to find out new information.
I know someone's going to find that Mana Confluence deck. I know they will.
For me, the best mana confluence deck, the most obvious one is 9 Hexproof. Mana's really rough, doesn't care about its life total, needs more lands that come into play untapped. That to me is the most obvious deck. The second being something along the lines of Kibler's Golgari deck, or just sort of a green-white beatdown deck, maybe splashing a third color. 2-color beatdown decks.
They have to exist. They're there somewhere.
Yep.
I know a green-white deck with Mana Confluence got exactly 16th place last weekend. Four of those, 4 Temple Gardens, 4 Temple Plenties, good green-white cards. Someone's going to find the right home for that card and going to find the right aggressive shell and take a tournament by storm. It almost seems inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
We're going to bring it back to us really quickly. We're going to be able to fix that overhead camera for you guys so you can actually see the cards when they come into play, because I think that's pretty important for coverage.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And I wasn't implying anything about Magic Online. Maybe
never.
Maybe your internet connection's shabby. Maybe you have other things going on this weekend that would prevent you from logging into Magic Online.
Sure.
Assuming that all the different variables are in place, a good weekend for exploring new content.
Trying to save face here?
I think that it's easy to imply that I meant something that I didn't.
That's true.
So I'm just
That's
trying to
true.
clear the air.
That's definitely true.
If you can log in, who knows?
If you have the time,
Yeah.
then by all means do that. We'll take a quick one here for you guys. How do you guys feel about the Boros burn deck? Do you feel like it will pick up again? Obviously, it picking up at the back end when we were in Los Angeles. It seems like that was kind of the breakout weekend. Vidyanto Wijaya making top 8 that weekend. Sherwin Poo making the finals before being dispatched by Yuya Watanabe and staff of the Death Magus. Timely time to be playing that card, obviously. That was kind of its breakout weekend. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like that again, where it was really like, wow, this deck is legit, because people decided after that they didn't want to lose to it. I think there's time and place for that deck. I don't know if it's right now, though.
I'm not a big fan. I think that it was okay for a little while last season because the metagame was such in a distorted place and Mono Black was just everywhere. So you could build your burn deck to have a good matchup there. I don't think that deck's really that good in a reasonably diverse field, and especially one where Courser of Crewfix is all over the place. Courser's really problematic for that deck, so I expect its popularity to recede, especially as long as things along the lines of Jeff Hoogland's junk deck are the most popular thing, or among the most popular things to be doing. And I never really thought too highly of the deck to begin with. I played it a lot during when Theros was the most recent set, and it was fun. I enjoyed playing it, but it's not something I ever felt was that objectively powerful.
I think that deck is only good if people aren't taking it seriously. Like if people decide I'm not losing to you, like Yuya and Shuhei did at the Grand Prix, and they had staff of the Death Magus. I'm not saying you have to go to those extremes, but people just basically saying, okay, I think people are going to play Burn this tournament. I will actually prepare for Burn, as opposed to when the deck was kind of creeping up around Albuquerque and Demestrio played it and stuff like that, and people were just like, oh, Burn. Okay, I guess, and then losing to it because it was not as good as they thought it was. That's when I think the deck actually shines. But now that people actually know the deck is legitimate, and you can come to a tournament like this one in Knoxville and say, okay, I'll dedicate a few slots to the Burn, or at least, craft a game plan around Burn, I think that's when the deck is actually pretty bad, because it's not really that hard of a deck to beat if you want to.
I don't even think you need to go as far as Staff of the Death Magus, although, of course, that card is excellent in that matchup. I even think if your Mono Black sideboard has 4 copies of Duress and 2 Freakish Cures, you're probably fine for the matchup.
Yeah, I think
you're
so.
Probably as prepared as you need to be. So there were times where people's sideboards were really absent of life gain effects, and Burn can be pretty good against Mono Black, although I still think that even just beating 4x Duress in the sideboard is not something you can do all the time.
Yeah, it seems like it's really tough.
And if you're doing anything else beyond that to prepare for the matchup, I think it becomes actively favorable for Mono Black. And the Mono Black matchup is supposed to be one of the big incentives to play the Burn deck, so it's not something that I would ever go near, at least the way the metagame is right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a different take on the deck that Phillip Fortner is playing, and he's got some creatures mixed in, not as many burn spells, some State of Fire Dancers hanging around, a little bit of a different sideboard that's off the cuff instead of just, as you mentioned, a ton of burn spells, 8 creatures, lands, make it all work. Again, it was it was kind of a right place, right time sort of thing when we saw Pooh make it the finals in the Grand Prix with it, and then Vidyanto Wijaya making the top 8 in Los Angeles with it when we were there, but then it kind of died down after that. I guess, its kind of culmination was the set playing that deck at the Charlotte Invitational, and that was his standard weapon of choice, and he was able to make the top 8 there. But again, that kind of gets overshadowed because of his, fantastic legacy play and the fact that he went undefeated in the legacy portion.
Yeah, it's not like the deck's unplayable.
Yeah.
I just think it's lower on the list of decks that I would recommend for someone to go towards.
Okay, fair enough. No, we'll be back to our match in just a second here, but I mean, I've got plenty of questions, so I'm just going to keep answering them because this is fun for me. We'll see. Do you think there could be some sort of Boros mid-range deck running Burmaz, Arios, and perhaps Aurelia, kind of a Boros mid-range deck?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Arios with Burmaz and Aurelia because your creatures are already pretty hard to block.
Okay.
So that feels kind of diminishing returns to me. I do think there's the possibility for a good stuff Naya deck with some number of mana confluences to be a powerful deck, and Aurelia especially I think is one of Standard's most underrated cards. So it would not surprise me if those cards came into play, but I don't think it's going to be alongside the Red-White God. I think that's more of a facilitator for a Precinct Captain style of beatdown deck.
I think it's actually pretty tough for a deck like that to be good, and the reason for that is simply because that seems like the kind of deck that Mono Black kind of just cuts up and just beats up on with its Thoughtseize and its card advantage with Underworld Connections and Hero's Downfall being able to take care of specific cards, be it Reckoner that costs 3 mana or Real that costs 6 mana, stuff like that. That's the kind of deck that it seems like Mono Black would just have a field day with, unfortunately, because I think that deck would be really cool and it'd be nice to see that deck see play. But that's part of the reason that Mono Black is so good is because it kind of just takes out the garbage.
Yeah, Mono now. When you're red-white, you do have the option of going to Assemble Legion, which is a pretty big cheat for that matchup,
Absolutely.
possibly. So it's not guaranteed that your matchup would be bad, but certainly I'm going to get this powerful synergistic suite of creatures in play together is kind of a pipe dream when Mono Black is as prevalent as it is.
It's game number 2. It's Phillip Fortner with a Temple of Abandon, and it's VanMeter with a Temple of Abandon, and it's Fortner actually with a Temple of Triumph. Scries have happened. Fortner going to play another Temple. Take a look. Top card going to go to the bottom for him. VanMeter takes a draw here. Picks up a Blood Crypt. You see an Overgrown Tomb in his hand already. I think he may have a Sylvan Caryatid as well, so maybe a little bit of acceleration this game for Chris.
And what you're seeing right now is the big cost of playing Jund Monsters or these lands. You can see Chris really hesitant to pull the trigger on taking 2 points of damage, and he actually elects not to, just playing his Elvish Mystic this turn instead.
That's something that can die. Fortner picks up a card for the turn. See if he wants to take care of the Mana Accelerant and maybe get a little aggressive, play a creature this turn.
I'm not sure if there's an issue with his sleeves or if Phillip just ran his deck through the wash before this tournament, but they are quite worn, these cards.
You see a Phoenix going to come across in the red zone here. VanMeter going to go down to 18, so Fortner does opt to give the beatdowns. See, VanMeter, we know he has got a couple of lands in his hand, and Chris is a player who does like to take his time, craft a game plan here. Every round's so important for him right now. Just a couple copies of Caryatid working towards something very large, passing the turn back.
Taking a second hit from the Phoenix here is a pretty big cost. This is the exact type of draw from Jund Monsters that's susceptible to getting burned out.
Mm-hmm. This basically plays the role of a Char. 3 mana, deal 4. If it deals more than that, geez, it's really hard to win then.
And it's likely to deal more than that. Chris only has a couple spot removal spells, or it's something like hanging back on defense with Storm Breath Dragon. These are not appealing situations.
Putrefy the draw here for VanMeter.
And Chris just would not a lot in the ways of interaction for the way this game is playing right now.
Here's 5 mana. Looks like he's going to play a Stormbreath Dragon, try to get his race on. Going to come across here for 5. 4 in the air and 1 on the ground. Got no time to mess around here. He's already behind.
And you can look at Phillip's hand here. I mean, there's a Magma Jet, a Lightning Strike, a Warrior's Helix, no end of burn here.
Helix's ability to gain 4 life probably going to play a huge role in this game.
The most important card in the attacking matchups.
Yep.
A lot of times when I was playing this deck, it just felt like Time Walk.
Yeah. VanMeter going to play a Blood Crypt post-combat. Here is Warlord's Helix going upstairs, playing the role of Time Walk here. VanMeter going to go down to 12. Fortner going to go up to 19. Going to take an untap here. Lightning Strike in the grip. Magma Jet might actually be cast pre-draw in his upkeep to make sure that he actually does draw a card that he wants.
Yeah, Scrying is so powerful in the burn deck.
Does take a draw. It's another copy of Warlord's Helix. Pretty big draw.
So he basically got to scry.
Yeah. One of the better draws he can find. And in for 2 more we go. VanMeter goes down to 10. And Fortner content with just passing the turn back.
He is in no rush.
I wouldn't be either. VanMeter draws another land here. Looks like a Stomping Ground is what he picked up. You see the Putrefy and then the Gorkland Rampager, but nothing too exciting over there for the Jund Monsters player.
And now he is just at the mercy of Phillip's hand. Not a lot of ways of relevant interaction here. He can kill the Phoenix, of course, but that's not a long-term solution to any of this.
It's already gotten its work done this game. 6 points of damage is so much. Putrefying that thing isn't even all that great, obviously, as it can just come back. So you see the power of Chandra's Phoenix this game, and it was quite good.
Chris with the ability to go monstrous with Stormbreath Dragon this turn. Maybe something he's contemplating, but you had to feel like you're almost certainly dying on the way back if you go down that road. But what's your plan otherwise, you know?
To play a third game.
Yeah.
That's
more or less.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at, I feel like.
Attack here for 5. Going to put Fortner down to 14. VanMeter going to play a Stomping Ground. I'm just going to pass the turn back. He's in some real trouble here. Another War Leader's Helix. He's going to go down to 6. Well, Chris Fortner going to go up to 18. You said time walking. It certainly does feel like that.
Yeah.
There's a Magma Jet. Yep. Going to light you up.
Just looking for the last piece here with Lightning Strike in hand, so.
There's Boros Charm.
That qualifies.
Take a draw. Play. Bash for 2. Putrefy, sure. Boros Charm you. Absolutely. We're going to go into a third one here between Fortner and VanMeter. Red-White Aggro winning game number 2 over Jund Monsters. Very important for Chris. He's going to be able to play.
Yeah, that's the to me, what really made the difference that game are those 2 Phoenix hits.
Yeah.
With a stable source of damage, while Chris is trying to get his shop set up, it's just, it makes it so much more powerful, all your other burn spells.
Yep. Just took too long to get the shop set up, as you mentioned. I mean, Chris has got to come out of the gates with a Mana Accelerant into something, basically a 4-mana spell on turn 3.
Yeah.
Even if it's Xenagos, which obviously isn't great, you just need something to do on turn 3 and accelerate into, especially when you're on the draw. When you're on the play, it's not as important, but if you're on the play and you're able to play a 4-mana spell on turn 3, like a Pulachronos, a Rampager, or a Xenagos, that's going to lead to a lot of victories in this matchup.
For me, the critical cards are Courser, Crewfix, and Scavenging Ooze. Just a little bit of life gain can also give Chris enough time for his 4 and 5 mana creatures to take over the game.
Yeah, and in that game, he didn't really find any of those. It was Stormbreath Dragon, some Mana Acceleration, pretty useless Putrefy, and that's about it. So not a great draw there from VanMeter. He's definitely going to need something much better to win this match.
It's possible he was thrown off the scent a little bit because of the cards that Phillip brought to the table in game 1. He played both Boros Reckoner and Stormbreath Dragon. It's easy to imagine he's just sort of some big red sort of mid-range deck.
Yep.
Game 2, Phillip showed just a conventional burn deck's game plan. So it's possible he's removing some of these Putrefy type cards based on the threats he saw in game 2.
Yeah, that's I think part of the reason that he's going back to the sideboard here, and really wants to reconfigure his deck. Also, things definitely do change when he's on the play as opposed to the draw. So he's definitely giving this some thought before we move into a third game.
Yeah, I try to de-emphasize my creatures a lot when I'm playing against Jund Monsters just because they have a lot of spot removal, they have Dalmery, they have things that are really good against your smaller creatures. So I try to convert as much as I can into a creature-light strategy, but Chris seeing what he saw in game number 1 might have just had a completely different read on what was going on with Phillip's deck.
I think he's got a pretty good idea now.
Yes.
Even though, it is kind of a mishmash of what Fortner's doing here when he's got, the burn spells like War Leader's Helix, Magma Jet, Boros, Charm, and Lightning Strike, but you also see Boros Reckoner game 1. You saw Satyr Fire Dancer, a Stormbreath Dragon. He doesn't even know about Dictate of the Twin Gods as well. I don't even know if that's in Fortner's deck after sideboard. But again, it's a mishmash of red-white cards here from Fortner. And we do have a quick update for you guys. Joe Lissette did win his match this round, so he's off to a nice 2-0 start here. It looks like he's feeling a little bit better this go around.
Good for him. He was definitely really shaky last week.
He was just going, he was sick last week, and you could tell it was a guy who probably wanted to drop from the tournaments and just say, you know what, I can't afford to do this. I just don't feel very good. But, he made the trip and he battled it out, and especially the legacy portion where, he knew he wasn't all there for miracles just because he was under the weather. Still, to be able to work out a 16th place last weekend was really impressive.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, given his physical state, it's a very impressive finish.
He did not look his best last week.
No.
Just under the weather, straight up.
Coughing and nose stuffed up.
Yeah. I know we talked about Mono Blue Devotion a little bit, wondering where that deck's going to be and where it's going to fall. I do see Tyler Wilkerson in the room, the player who did win our Orlando Open in week 2 of season 1 with Mono Blue Devotion before almost going back-to-back and threatening Jerry T's title. Lost in the top 4 of the legacy portion with Omnitel, so a big fan of the Islands and has already won a Standard Open with Mono Blue Devotion. We know he's in the house, don't know what he's playing. But I did see him just walk a match slip up, so we know that he's 2-0 as well.
You got off to a really hot start season 1 of 2014 with that Orlando performance, and so actually started to travel around a little bit too.
Yeah.
He's from the Atlanta area. I'm not really sure how far that drive is, but I think it's not unreasonable. A couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, he made it.
Yeah.
So couldn't be too unreasonable. VanMeter going to start off here with the Man Accelerant, very important here. And Elvis Mystic, you see a Temple of Triumph from Fortner. Going to leave the top card on top before passing back to Chris. See if Chris can actually play like a course run turn 2 or lose or something. Just has a Temple of Abandon. We'll take a look at the top card. Looks like a copy of Pulachronos. He wasn't going to leave it there very quickly, and now he does.
Pulachronos is a pretty powerful threat against burn.
So big.
Chaining the rocks or bust.
So big. Can't burn it out. And if you do have to waste 2 burn spells on it, that's a victory for you.
Yeah, it is a bit on the slow side, but overall pretty powerful in the matchup.
Mountain going to come into play here for Fortner. Does have a Magma Jet in his hand, but also does have a copy of Satyr Fire Dancer. So we'll see if he wants to go with the creature or just taking care of the Mystic. I think you have to take care of the Mystic in this situation.
It's pretty attractive. You know, Chris did nothing last turn, so it kind of implies that he will also do nothing the following turn if you go ahead and kill this.
And there's Magma Jet. You see a Chain of the Rocks and a Sacred Foundry. Kind of a combo there as far as cards are concerned that Fortner's looking at. Does he want to keep both? Looks like he wants to keep the Chain. He's going to put the Foundry to the bottom.
He's already got his Temple, so he's good on white mana.
Yep. Pulachronos to draw here for VanMeter. You see a Blood Crypt there. That's going to come into play untapped. VanMeter going to go down to 18. Does he have a play? We know he has Putrefy. And he's just going to pass the turn back. Kind of risky there, taking 2.
That is a very aggressive line here from Chris. Those 2 points of damage could end up being very significant here. If it's Chandra's Phoenix, it's a push on damage. It's a lot better if it's Boros Reckoner. So it was the play that Phillip was going to do here.
Phillip going to play a Sacred Foundry untapped, and now here's the Phoenix. This is actually works out really, really well for Chris, as the Putrefy is going to take care of the Phoenix. So VanMeter's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. Does he have an untapped land? He does. There's a Forest, now Pulachronos. So a fortunate series of events there for VanMeter. Taking the 2 does not come back to hurt him, and now he's got the 5/5 Hydra in play.
Pretty powerful stuff. That was a big risk that turn that Chris took, but he got paid off for it.
Speaking of big risk, a Mana Confluence going to come down here for Fortner. We'll see how that's going to do things for him. He's going to have to take 1 to cast that Boros Reckoner. Those points of damage do add up.
Though they are a lot more important for Chris than they are for Phillip.
VanMeter going to draw. Going to play a Temple. A little scry action here. Looking at an Overgrown Tomb. Got to imagine that's going to go to the bottom, and it does. Got a Mizzium Mortars at the ready here. Question is, does he want to fire it off now or later? He's going to have to take 4 if he does, so Mortar's going to take care of that. Does not look too thrilled to have to cast that card. VanMeter going to go down to 14 and get the Reckoner off the table, and his hand right now is just lands, so he's going to need either some sort of large creature to get back in this or some way to take care of that Chain of the Rocks. Fortner going to play a Satyr Fire Dancer after that Mutavault. Just pass the turn back.
And keep in mind, there's still that Phoenix in the graveyard too, so Phillip in the driver's seat right now.
Oh, VanMeter did a big draw. Looks like he found one here in Stormbreath Dragon. Really doesn't have much of a choice at this point. It's kind of all in. Going to attack here for 4. Fortner going to go down to 12. We know VanMeter has lands to play. He's going to play a Stomping Ground tap, pass the turn back, and threaten Monstrosity next turn.
Phillip really needs some burn spells here. Was that a Spark Trooper? That is a big draw. He does have 2 in the sideboard.
Old Sparky.
I believe they are quite good in this matchup, and this is a great spot for it.
One of my favorite cards that's a little bit underplayed is the old Spark Trooper. Might play a huge role in this game.
I had him in my sideboard of the Black PT, and it was quite an integral piece of the puzzle.
The old 6/1, kind of playing a blistering Firecat, Ball Lightning-esque card. But the fact that it has lifelink is the big deal here, because we are certainly in a racing situation. We mentioned that War Leader's Helix is like a time walk. You can say the same about this.
Also, this is just an A+ Magic design for the record, too. I mean, Ball Lightning's a beloved card. How do you make Ball Lightning even sweeter? You put lifelink on it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Just an attack here for 1. Pretty simple stuff there from Fortner. VanMeter going to untap and take a draw. He picked up a copy of Rakdos' Return. Now that's mighty interesting.
It's a great draw here, too.
What do you do here? Gonna play a Forest. He wants to, I mean, he has the ability to go monstrous with this card.
I think that Chris is just trying to figure out what could be in Phillip's hand.
Yeah.
He didn't kill a Stormbreath Dragon last turn. He didn't attack with the Mutavaults. So what on earth is going on there?
I'm gonna attack, says VanMeter. He says, yeah, I'm Monstrosity right now. If you have 2 burn spells, that's cool, but I don't think you do. So here's an attack. That.
Oh my God. Oh no.
A Dictator of the Twin Gods comes down, and now Spark Trooper.
Oh! That's what was in his hand. Obviously, Chris, it was Dictator of the Twin Gods and Spark Trooper. How did you not figure that out?
Yeah, hasn't he played any? The 1-2 punch. VanMeter shows the
my
Rakdos'
God.
return, and that is it. Phillip Fortner gonna win this match over Chris VanMeter 2-1. And now you see CVM thinking, man, I should have cast that Rakdos' return.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to kill me this turn. It actually would have just ruined him for the game. Fortner doesn't have anything left after that.
Yeah, it's a tough play. Again, go back to last turn. Phillip didn't attack with Mutavault, didn't cast anything.
Yep.
But also had Cinder Fire Dancer in play. So if Phillip's hand is just 2 burn spells, he's just casting them, getting his Phoenix backs, killing your Stormbright Dragon.
Absolutely.
So it's really hard if you're in Chris's seat to try to deduce what's going on in his hand. What on earth could he possibly have? And it turned out that it was Dictator of the Twin Gods and Spark Trooper, but I cannot blame Chris for being unable to figure out that was what was going on there.
Yeah. If Chris figures that out, he is some kind of master.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die to Dictate plus Spark Trooper in Game 3 against this red white burn deck, and yeah. That's when you're in a race like this for the Players' Championship, and every match and every point matters, and you get something wrong like that. And also, the tough part here, too, is it's not like Chris drew a land for the turn. Chris drew Rakdos' return for the turn. So if Chris just says, all right, attack with the dragon, fireball you and your hand, Chris wins that game and this match. Like, pretty easy.